Shalom Israel. Welcome to Hebrew-Israelite Novice Bible Study. Happy Hanukkah. We're in the festivity of Hanukkah 2021. Hanukkah is a feast that is found in the book of Maccabees, right? I will try to attempt to read up until that point to give people the story, what happened. Okay, so without further ado, let's just dive right into it. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. The book of Maccabees, chapter 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of Persia and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew kings of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries, and nations, and kings, and whom became tributors unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died. And his servants did rule over in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. And evils were multiplied in the earth. After there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 120th and 7 years of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out Israel, wicked men, who persuade many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had many sorrows. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward hearing that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the custom of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, in a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong city in the land of Egypt, and took the spoil thereof. After that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the veils, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold, and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was great mourning in Israel, in every place where they were, so that the prince and the elders mourned, the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that stayed in the married chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collectors of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them. But all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoil of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then built they the city of David, with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with a armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoil of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary of Israel to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fell because of them. Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strong to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellence was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed unto the commandments of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and polluted the sanctuary and the holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their soul abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandments of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to this whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the city of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evil in the land, and drove the Israelite into secret place. Even whosoever they could find, they could flee for succor. Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the city of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire. And whosoever was found with any, the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put them to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelite every month, to as many as were found in the city. Now the 5th and 20th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altars, which was upon the altar of God, at which time, according to the commandments, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And they chained the infants about their necks, and refilled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Albeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meat, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died, and there was very great wrath upon Israel. Okay, family. That definitely was not an easy read. Stay tuned for chapter 2. My best to cover that until we get to the month, the feast, until it starts to mention the feast and so forth, and maybe I'll end there. I will see where the Spirit leads. Shalom, Israel. Happy Sabbath. Happy feast of dedication, feast of light, Hanukah. Shalom.